Thank you very much, Wyn. MELSIG has been keen to come to Nottingham for a long while. Actually, since we first started talking about lecture capture in particular and how that related to MELSIG back in 2008. Nottingham has always had a really interesting profile and reputation with regard to using video in the classroom in one form or another. And it's about time we were here. I really appreciate everything you've said. I think everyone here who's come into the university today will recognise many of the things that you're talking about. You've helped to set the agenda for us today, and also to recognise and share and highlight some of the things that are already happening here at the university. You've talked about a lot of this still being emerging. I think that's really important to note. I've already had several fantastic conversations this morning, and clearly there's still a lot to be learnt, and I'll be highlighting some of these. So thanks for the introduction, and thanks for hosting MELSIG today. Okay, I'm Andrew Middleton, if you've not... Cheers. Great. I'm Andrew Middleton. I chair MELSIG, if you've not come across me before. I'm going to fairly quickly now just run through some pieces of information about MELSIG so you get a grasp of who we are and why and what. Today we're really looking at creative lecture capture and webinars and screencasting and all things video, probably mostly in close relation to the formal approaches that we have to teaching and learning. Though inevitably and increasingly the formal-informal divide is blurring increasingly. I think this is one of the things we'll realise as we think more about video and where we use it, where we make it. I'll just pick up on that word creative, actually. Wyn did start to pick up on it. We could have used critical in the title. That's a wee bit more abrasive in terms of a term. I think what we know now in 2015, compared to 2008, when we were starting to play with the idea of running this very event, that we needed to go beyond the obvious. And that's what we're learning about now. What we're trying is the technology is becoming much more robust, reliable, and in the case of institutional technology, robust and provided with technologies such as Kaltura. What we're learning now is that we can move beyond the concern of will it work, and all we need to do is say yes and give permission for it to be captured. No, today what we're really trying to do, and what we're trying to do in general, I think, as a sector, is appreciate how this allows us to use the formal and indeed informal spaces for learning more creatively, more critically. So I sense that we'll be hearing quite a few good stories about slightly different approaches to what may have been happening 3 or 4 years ago. Okay, a bit about MELSIG, just in case you don't know so much about us. We're a voluntary group. We were funded initially, and actually we've made a point of not seeking further funding because we can do it by working with hosts. And I'm looking for further hosts for this year, by the way. I'll mention that again later. But by working with people who basically pay for the catering, we are less bound and constrained in what we do. And it's really important that we work together and develop a sense of partnership, community, whatever works for us in terms of sharing the best of our emerging practice. That's the philosophy behind MELSIG. Our focus is digital and social media. MELSIG, by the way, I think is a really nice metaphor for the day. I think it's really interesting to pick up on that, and I challenge anyone who says anything today to try and make a connection between that and what Mel is all about. But I would say we're energetic and sporty for sure, so I've already nabbed that one. So over to you for the rest of the day. Let's try and carry that metaphor throughout. I think it's certainly quite useful, and it begs the question, why do we call ourselves Media Enhanced Learning? I've never heard of that before. Actually, we wanted to devise a new term. It doesn't really matter what it is or what it means, but we didn't want to be TELSIG. People have roles called TEL. We wanted to propose something that might be different to what you're already doing, because we're about innovation, we're about thinking differently. So it's about digital and social media, it's about sharing practice, generating ideas, either for ourselves as we listen. Don't just take everything at face value. Challenge it in your own mind, if not more vociferously. Generate ideas, asking questions, accepting that practice is emerging is a big part of this. We're learning as we're doing, and we're taking risks. And so we're all about innovation and change. And as a community, we therefore support and validate the notion of change in our practice. It's very difficult for us as innovators, as early adopters sometimes, to say, am I doing the right thing? At the moment, there aren't so many right things when it comes to this. The right things are what you try to do with the support of your colleagues. That's what we're about. That's why we share local practice, regional practice, and ensure that there are networking opportunities. So there you go. Social is a very important aspect of this, of who we are, what we do, and how we work together. One of the interesting points at this, in time for us is this tension, this relationship between personal and institutional. So if we're talking about lecture capture, what are we talking about in terms of capture? Is it something on our own devices, or is it something up there? Today, well, it's certainly something up there. This is being streamed, so if you are going to make a contribution, be aware that your voice will be part of that stream and will be recorded. But I hope that won't hold you back. Is it an institutional matter? Is it a personal matter? Well, that question is forever changing in everything we do with technology at the moment. And mostly things are heading towards personal technologies, smart technologies, and perhaps away from institutionally provided technologies. So as we have any conversation today, be aware that what we come to depend upon today from our institution may be changing tomorrow. That's one of the things about media-enhanced learning. We live in very much a changing world. But we're living in a very rich world. We value voice, whether it's the voice at the front or the voice amongst us. Voice has been a very important word for MELSIG. It's recognising that the voices amongst us, the conversations we have from outside of the university, external voices, from our students, from our staff, from our employers, from our professional associations, all of those people now can be heard and join us in the teaching and learning conversation because of this technology. And that takes us to connection. All of those people can redefine higher education because of what we do with media-enhanced learning. And it's always accessible, always on. So we are recording as well as streaming today. So I will go back and check whether I'm making sense tomorrow. I don't usually, but it's worth checking. Peer observation of teaching, what a perfect use of lecture capture. Sorry, that's me reflecting on my role back at Sheffield Hallam. I'm responsible for professional development, and we have peer observation of teaching. We don't have the technologies that are here today, but I'd like to think if we did, we'd use it for peer observation, for reflecting on our own practice. Okay, open learning in various forms. MELSIG's very much associated with an online event that ran again for the third time last week called Bring Your Own Devices for Learning. Very much we're part of a sector that is interested in redefining the way we teach and learn. And this word open, and it has many, many meanings, is a really important word for us in MELSIG. With video, the connection to the real world, that authentic connection, the fact that we all have technologies that can support us in accessing such media and indeed making such media. That shift towards the informal from the formal is going to be a trend worth watching. So we're looking at a changing learning context. And today, as I say there on the slide, where our focus is about video, as you know. I'm not going to dwell on this because we're already pushing for time here. But I will just try and show you a couple of, well, half a minute maybe of this video. You'll be aware I've put a call out for examples of video. This one, as it happens, comes from the University of Nottingham. And I just want to pick up on...
What I'd really like to do...
I like that. That's so messy. It's real.
I've been involved with for 60 Symbols and Number 5 and previous million other channels. The one I'm least happy with by far is the one we did in Entropy. We even then we followed that up with a sort of mea culpa, where I pointed out, well, there are some important details here that we glossed over. I really want to revisit Entropy, and Brady's going to indulge me, which is great, but you might not.
I'm going to pause that right now. There's plenty more to see, and it's really interesting. But I just want to give you a flavour of something about... Well, there's all sorts of things there. Let's go back to the slide. We can look at articulation. We can look at information. Later on, there's information all about entropy and so forth. There's movement in its own way. There's movement in the spirit and life of our presenter on that instance. There's certainly this notion of presence and voice, and many of these attributes here of video, things that we might think about during the day that I think show the diverse appreciation of video and visual representation. This is the territory, I think, for us today, some of these ideas. So in this example, the red arrows point towards attributes that I notice in this particular video. It is about information delivery to a certain extent, but my God, the presence of our presenter in this example is profound. The use of voice, and indeed the teacher's voice, is characteristic of what we find in that video. I will be sharing some of the other videos from the survey. I didn't get a lot of responses to the survey call that I put out, so please do share some more with me, because my intention is to put links through to the examples that were shared on the MELSIG event page for this event, but that one will be there. So I'll just highlight what I think are some key changes in appreciation of educational video. Diverse production values. We will see Rough and Ready. I like the intro to that. It's real. It brought that person right to mind for us. We got to know that person immediately because it wasn't crafted and sanitized, I suppose. Another idea that I hope you're familiar with is the notion of the flipped classroom. It's not necessarily about capturing everything we do. It's about maybe engaging beforehand with video and bringing that as a starting point for conversation when we are together. The notion of the authentic voice as well, as I've already mentioned. Who is the voice when we're talking about video, when we're talking about webinars, when we're talking about screencasts? What is the role of that person, and why is that of interest to us? So those are just three things that sprung to mind early this morning as I put that slide together. Okay, just wrap off now with a bit of publicity. Digital Voices is a book produced by the MELSIG community, published last year. 27 authors engaged in digital voices. There are some really good examples and challenging questions about how we are using media in teaching and learning. It is actually now available free as an ebook, and you can find that download link on the MELSIG website. We are about to publish another book called Smart Learning as well. Again, this time we have 30 authors. There's thought pieces, there are case studies, there are scenarios. It is fascinating, it is of the moment, and because we're working with the e-book domain, it means we don't have some of the concerns that a traditional print publisher has. We take risks in the Digital Voices book, we take risks in the Smart Learning book, because we're not concerned about the need to sell enough copies to make it worthwhile, to put it simply. Smart Learning, keep an eye out for it. It's all about bring your own devices and how devices such as tablets and smartphones are changing higher education right now. And I hope to see that published in February. Depends how many late nights I can survive. Okay, finally, some announcements. We've not yet set up the next MELSIG event. If you or your institution might be interested in hosting it, please contact me. You can DM me over Twitter @AndrewMid, or come and have a chat with me over lunch, and I can talk to you about what that might mean. We are reconfiguring our steering group at the moment, and one of the things that I want to do on the back of that is actually run a webinar program. It seems daft that we all have to get together all of the time, when actually more frequently we could be doing a lot of very interesting things through the medium of webinar. So if you're interested in offering a contribution to that in terms of managing it or presenting, then please also have a conversation with me. I am really quite keen to initiate an open journal for MELSIG as well, and if that sounds of interest to you in any way at all, then please signal that interest. In particular, I am trying to reconfigure our steering group. I've already mentioned that we're a voluntary group, and I would like to offer the invitation for anyone watching this or here today to consider being part of MELSIG and trying to do a few more things differently with regard to webinars, the journal, and there are several other very interesting ideas for what MELSIG could be doing right now beyond events. So come and find me. And before I forget, I really have to say thank you very much to the University of Nottingham, and in particular Sally Hanford, who has been the person here who has really brought this all together. And so thank you very much, Sally. It's just been brilliant. I've hardly blinked in terms of organising this, apart from sending everyone out the message that it was happening on a Monday. Sorry about that. I'm sure everyone's hearts fluttered for a moment. Yeah, Tuesday it is, by the looks of it. Okay, let's move on now. We are running a wee bit late, but hopefully we'll make up that time. And Sally Chappell, you're going to start us off. Are you set up there? Okay.